Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. With my janky glasses for another Friday episode of the greatest show on YouTube. No, not that. I don't know. Something. OSR Reddit Roundup. Something. Glad you can make it. I will get Reddit up and going in a moment. I just got to find my windows. Find my windows. Actually, I need to open up a new window because I got too much stuff going on. I don't want to clutter it up. I need a fresh window. All right, let me get a fresh window. While I'm doing that, I guess only one major programming note. I got a press pass for PAX Unplugged. Got the notification today in my email. I'm super excited about that. I have decided that this one is in a realm of possibility for me to actually attend. So I will. So I will be at PAX Unplugged, which is in the great state of Pennsylvania, the city of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love or hate, more like. December 10 through 12. If you're planning to go to PAX Unplugged, let me know. I'd love to meet up with other folks. Say hey. Grab a non-alcoholic beverage. In my case, you can drink whatever you like. But, and I'm sure I will talk more about this at a later time, it is not the time for that. It is the time for the OSR Reddit Roundup. And I have pulled up the OSR Reddit. I will give it a nice refresh. Oh, you know what? Let me close up this other window. Close up another window here. Let me just close up old business. Get rid of old business. Okay. Using the hot tab. Let's see what we've got. Oh, there's beginner OSR DM. What do? That just seems like way too big of a question. Man, I've got a whole, 80 some odd video playlist of kind of what do type videos. Those questions, look, I appreciate people looking out for advice. I do. But when you ask a question like, hey, beginner, what do I do, to a subject as vast as running role-playing games, it's really tough to give somebody. I mean, there's no one piece of advice I could give someone, or even three pieces of advice. I think you really have to, there's nothing to do but to try. I think no matter what somebody tells you, I don't think you're really going to know until you try. And then at that point, once you've tried, then I presume you'll actually have more focused questions that potentially people can give you answers on, as opposed to just those just blanket help posts. We've got a 17th century minimalist bestiary. I'll click on this one because I don't. Sounds interesting. No, they're looking for stuff that I can't help you with so much. Oddly specific. So I was hoping someone would have made a 17th century bestiary, but looking for one might be a harder task. Do you like sea/island adventures? Well, yes, I do. I think this will probably take us to, something external. Let's see. This was posted by Malrex Modules. Hey, I'm with the Merciless Merchants. I don't know who that is. Haven't heard of us? Not surprised. We are a small outfit of D&D enthusiasts that work out of a garage. We have a few hits. The Red Prophet Rises and The Palace of Unquiet Repose. We just launched a new Kickstarter, called Voyages of the Zontani Sea. All right, so people are excited about it, or at least one person excited. I will give them an upvote, but I don't know anything about those. Maybe I'll have to check it out at some point. Anyone know Merciless Merchants? Let me know. Maybe I'll have to look at their stuff. Running hex crawls online. How do you do it? I'll upvote the question. I don't have a particular solution. I guess we'll click in it. We'll see what the question is. Okay, this is using like Roll20. I don't have any wisdom for Roll20. It's more in this case, if it was more general, I could say something about how I do it, Theater of the Mind style, but not so much. Did you implement use form knock at your table? I haven't read knock yet, so I don't know about that. How important do you feel crossplay compatibility is in an OSR module? Classic versus OSR, is there a difference? I would say the difference is, I think, classic play. So OSR, I think, has diverged quite a bit depending on what your version of OSR is from how people actually played the game back in the day. There's a lot of OSR stuff that's interesting and fascinating and wonderful and great to play, but doesn't actually reflect the practical experience of what it was like playing these games when they were new. Playing something like Electric Bastion Land is pretty far from what, say, people playing BX in the early 80s actually was. Hey, we got Chip in the house. Hey, Chip. Watching at work. Be with you in about 10 minutes. We'll watch later. Great. Glad to have you for those 10 minutes. And yeah, don't work too hard, but then don't get fired either. So work on. So I think if classic is in trying the things that might actually, or I should say, let me back up. I think classic would be looking to how to play the way that the game was practically played back in the day, or some version thereof. Now, that when I played back in the day, I was a kid. We didn't play like Gygax or Arneson's Table or any of those kind of groups played. We played our own weird way, and classic could be playing like that. But I think that's what classic is trying to do, is trying to, and look, I don't have a poll of any of this. It's just my one person's take on what it means classic. But you were looking for that experience. So the classic to you might be just be playing, hey, I've got BX, I've got Keep on the Borderlands, and we're going to essentially play it, by the book with whatever house rules and everything. But that's what we're going to do, as opposed to we're going to play Knave or Into the Odd or Maze Rats, or things that have taken those ideas but done something new compared to them, right? If we were to take a copy of Electric Bastion Land, teleport in time back to 1982 and hand it to some people who had just gotten BX or who had played BX a bit, or even veterans from the White Box or the Holmes set, I don't think they would look at that and see that these are naturally so close together. They would probably say, whoa, this is really different. Even though talking about them, we will pull them all together into OSR. Probably back then, someone would go, this is not in the same stadium as these other games. It's somewhere else. It's its own thing. So I think classic is really, you're not trying to depart. You're not using it as an inspiration. You are trying to kind of revitalize. Just you're trying to play back and kind of how it was like to actually play the game back then. Whereas OSR is all this stuff that's taken this as a base, kind of like the Renaissance. You might be doing interesting and different things about it, but we could look at the roots of what you were doing and seeing how these old games inspired you. Whereas I think classic is more like, no, we want to kind of go back and be closer to the actual things, as opposed to just these are the seeds for our inspiration. But it's, again, I do think I say again, it's one of my sort of joining words I need to try to get rid of. It's just a waste. I think maybe the important thing here is, like OSR itself, right? Classic is going to be somewhat vague. I think it doesn't have any sort of official definition. It really is just what different people are going to make of it. That's my take on it. But other people might have very, very vastly different takes. Much like with the OSR itself, you might not even get much agreement for one person's classic, it's another person's not classic, and so on and so forth. What defines a good adventure to you? All right, I'll click on this. I'm curious if they're going to have anything in here okay, so it's kind of, all right, so this is posted by Druish Prince. My writing partner and I are getting ready to write up our first OSR adventure. I've been playing OSR for a few years now, but I was wondering what you all consider good qualities of a fun OSR adventure. What do you think defines an adventure as OSR, and what do you look for to make that decision? Thanks for any help you give me. This subreddit has been of immense help already. All right. Before I get into this one, it's one of these questions. Before I get into reading the comments that have been posted in here, I would say I guess I can just speak to maybe what I think a good OSR adventure is. I really like that. If you missed my stream as recorded, was recorded yesterday, but of course it may show up in different places, different times. But if you catch my stream in which I looked at the Black Worm of Brandonsford, I think that did a very good job of being, I don't want to say ideal, because what is an ideal, but an excellent example of what I would consider to be a good OSR adventure. Not just in terms of, oh, hey, we're using OSR rules or we're referencing OSR materials, that kind of thing, but an adventure that speaks to running or playing in an OSR kind of game. There's an adventure there, but it's very open-ended in how you want to attack it or approach it. Different factions, different individuals that you can interact with, but I don't even want to say a balance, almost an emphasis on that cleverness part of how you are going to deal with these different individuals and different factions. So you have the goblins, you have the fawn, or fawns, I think there are multiple ones. You have the witch, you have some of those NPCs in town, you have the dragon itself, all these different elements. And sure, you could just brute force, go to one place, attack, kill. If you succeed, go on to the next one, attack, kill. And then if you succeed, go on to the next one. But that's probably the least, not only is it maybe the least fun, it's certainly the least efficient, certainly least chance of success. If you look at those different elements, you can really see a lot of webs that you can create between them. If I can get this part out of here, and if I can learn the things I need to learn about them, what each piece has something that you can take from it to help with these other pieces. Okay, you want to deal with the Goblin King, you could deal with them on their own, but you might get some more information if you talk to this person first. If you go here, you might learn something about these other things. If you just go in and kill them, you might learn it, you very well might not. But if you can be sneaky, be smart, be clever, be charming, be whatever, you could do that. And you have to, because it's a low-level adventure, but the enemies could be very powerful. A lot of things that would, if you were to put it in a 5th edition CR calculator, would probably come up as deadly, at least. I think if you go in, just aim straight for the dragon and charge, chances are that's going to be a beyond deadly encounter. And the same thing really with however you might define, it might look at the goblins and some of the other ones, really tough. So you don't have to, but I think it rewards the kind of things that we find rewarding in OSR play. So I think that's what makes an OSR adventure. And that might vary from group to group, person to person, but I think for this person, you could even playing OSR for a few years, then great. What does OSR mean to you? What are the elements of OSR play that you love as a player, that you love to dig into as a GM, and then make a module that speaks to that? And the Black Worm of Brandonsford definitely did that. And I think they even put at the beginning kind of the things that their design goals for the adventure, the kind of things they were aiming to do, which were very OSR, or at least I think what most people would agree are very kind of OSR traits. And they leaned into them. And that's what I would say for them, if they were to listen to this, what I would recommend. Tunka Todd says, to me, what an OSR adventure is all about the quote-unquote feel of the adventure, like Conan or Fritz Lieber, where the heroes have to think, then deal with the fallout of their choices. Yep, I think that's definitely true. I think the thinking part is really an important element, which goes back to that cleverness. You hear people say cleverness, I'll say cleverness. But really, it's all about making thinky choices, understanding that those choices have consequences, and then dealing with the consequences and the ramifications of the choices that you make. So you should never feel like your choices are in a vacuum. I think if you feel like your choice is in a vacuum, it's probably either not much of a choice or it's not much of a fun choice. It should be we pick A or B, each one of those has things in its favor, and each one of those has its own drawbacks. Do we pick the lock on the door, or do we bang it down? If we pick the lock and we fail, maybe we've jammed the lock or fused it or something else. Or if we bang the door down, we will certainly get it down. Or maybe I'll break my lock picks. But if we bang the door down, we'll certainly get it down. But we're going to make a lot of noise. Right? There's things we have things we're trying to do, and each one of those has a reason why that choice matters. Picking the lock matters. Maybe we'll open the door if we pick the lock, but if we break the lock or something, then anyone coming is going to see we've passed that way, or something else. You can come up with whatever consequences you want, but if you find that there's no consequence to it, then it's probably not a really great choice, or it's not a choice you should even really be worrying about. And that's a big thing, because there's not a lot else going on. You're not going to get your fun out of OSR games through whipping around a bunch of powers. You're not a superhuman for the most part, unless you're playing a kind of a superhero kind of game. So the stuff that's really going to stick with you playing an OSR game is that fun of making those choices and seeing what the fallout is. Okay, so let's see what some of the people who have commented in this thread, and I already upvoted it. Good on me. Donalage said, I think the main keyword would be options. First, let me upvote this. I think the main keyword would be options, like multiple possible approaches to get something or do something. Most DMs I've heard seem to have the philosophy of, I present you the obstacle, but I have no idea how you're going to solve it. That's your job. So have some big dangers or obstacles and an open mind as to how it would be solved, probably by thinking out of the box. As to maps, there's an entire thing called decaying, which seems to be very important to OSR players and DMs. It mainly means that dungeons should not be railroads, but have many ways to approach things. They should also not be made to be 100% completed. The goal tends to be get in, grab some valuables, and get out. Hopefully everyone is still alive. This leads to the next point. OSR doesn't care about balance. For the same reason. It's not really about the fighting, but rather about finding clever solutions to interesting problems. Often players will see it as a badge of honor to raid a dungeon without a single fight. For this, there are some tools. The aforementioned decaying, having big, overpowered, dangerous monsters that players would be crazy to take head-on, intelligent monsters to influence through diplomatic schmoozing, gossip, bribing, and other shenanigans and trickery. I think that's all I can remember. Some like puzzles and riddles as it's old school, but others don't like those. Yep, that's a good response. Elfbait says, hey, Elfbait, I don't think the DM should present options for resolution to the players. I think I would agree to that. If they do, it should be couched in the description of the encounter/environment. Yeah, I agree. I think the only time I might step in, if I'm thinking about it, and maybe give an option or two, is maybe just to remind the players that they're not in the box. For example, you see this example listed a lot of times. This is bad design, right? You come up to the door, the one door in the dungeon, and you don't have a key. It's terrible design because you've stopped the adventure. The party cannot proceed forth unless they have a key. You didn't give them the key, or they didn't find the key. Now they're stuck. Well, and look, I agree with it. As far as just as a general thing, yes, you should not lock out your players with this idea of have the key, open the door. But it's really only a problem if the only way to open the door is a key. If they can simply bang the door down, then they're not really blocked. But sometimes the party will be in a mind space, brain space. And in that brain space, their failure to have the key is like, well, that's it. Door's closed and we don't have the key. So what can we do? Right. And I've seen that come up, and I might remind them, well, what would you do in the real world if you had to get on the other side of a door and you didn't have the key and it was life or death, or you just had to? Right? You wouldn't just say, well, we're done, turn around. No, you would try to wedge the door open, bang the door open, ram the door open, whatever it needs to. Assuming that the door isn't magic or something else, but it's just a mundane lock, then, bang it down. And sometimes it can be helpful to the party to be reminded that to look at it kind of in the real world and not in that sort of video gamey sense of you're on level 3 of Doom, and you need to get the blue key to open the blue door and the yellow key to open the yellow door. And so you get to the red door, but you haven't found the red key yet. So now you just have to run around the level to try to find the red key, because that is a magically gated area. They're forcing you to get key, open door, get key, open door. Again, unless it's magic, unless you've set it up to be that way in general, it could just be a locked door, right? Like a locked chest. Oh, the chest is locked. Do you have the key? No. So what do? Just give up the chest? No. Someone says, well, I take my hammer or take my axe and I just break open the lid of the chest. And like I said, sometimes I need to be reminded that, hey, this isn't a video game, right? How would you do this? Or think about your options. Okay, you don't have the key. It's not the end of the world, right? You can do something about that. Ovaltine Patrol says, need to hit the road, but I'll be listening in the car. Hey, awesome. Just, hopefully I won't cause any crashes or anything. That would be bad. And then Elfbait says, that would be bad design then. Yes. It would be bad design. Don't put any gateways. Don't gate your party and force them to go through particular hoops to get to particular places. I don't mind there being advantages. If you have some big door, the advantage of having the key is you can get in and out with A, people won't really hear you unless they're super close to the door. B, they won't know you've gone in because there won't be any breaks on the door. You just use the key, open and close it. You can do it pretty stealthily. Those are all good things. But not having the key shouldn't just prevent you, but it takes away that advantage of stealth if you have it. If that's important. And if it's not important, then I don't know, then don't worry so much about it. Eric Vulgaris. That name sounds familiar, but I can't think of why. They chime in a comment to Denalage saying, I'd like to round out your post and say not all puzzles or dangers have to have answers designed into them. Sometimes just adding a bottomless chasm to cross and watching your players figure out if their 10-foot pole and some rope can fashion a bridge, or just finding another way, is exactly what a DM is looking for out of a dungeon. OSR DMs need less hand-holding and are used to just ruling whatever their players come up with. Most important thing to me is a theme. And then PW Throw Rug says, I love this last sentence. Do you have any favorite themes or adventures that really exemplify that theme's first philosophy? And Vino Azelman answers that and says, Temple of 1,000 Swords. And then PW Throw Rug likes that. Investigator Hungry chimes in and says, great points. Also, I'm in the camp of puzzles and riddles. It's a fun addition to spice up an area. To add to this, an adequate amount of treasure should be present. I've seen quite a few adventures, one-page dungeons, etc., that are simply lacking in enough treasure scattered about. This gets a response from the original poster, Druish Prince, saying, I'm a huge puzzles and riddles guy myself. Though if the puzzle isn't explained well enough, it can be really maddening. Who wants to fail because you had an inaccurate picture in your head? Yep, I'm going to put myself on the, not that I hate them, but I'm not a huge puzzles and riddles guy. I actually think, again, this might be a running theme, but just because it's fresh in my brain, I thought that the Black Worm of Bradensford did a good job with the one kind of puzzle instance that at least I recall. In the Barrow Mound, I thought that was actually really well done with being puzzly, but also being really part of the world and not something that just seems to be sitting artificially on top of it to just give people a puzzle. Terrence, now say Terrence, can't type because you're eating honey wings. Well, enjoy the honey wings. I don't think I've ever heard of honey wings. So that's just wings with a honey sauce, or is it hardened honey that's shaped into wings? Or is it something else entirely? The Red Cap says, hey, Red Caps. Puzzles and riddles are one of those things that totally depends on your players and knowing if they like brain teasers. I will definitely accept that. I kind of like brain teasers, but I also feel like the dungeon itself is the puzzle. And as some of these commenters mentioned before, right, you're moving around the dungeon. You have chasms that open up all kinds of things. Those are all puzzles. They're not puzzles in the kind of defined way that a particular, I think what we think of as a riddle or puzzle works, but they're puzzles. How do you get across this 40-foot chasm when all we have are 20 feet of rope and a 10-foot pole? You figure it out, right? That is a puzzle. And I think just as a general rule, I prefer those. I think there is a place for more, say, formal puzzles. But I think that too often people feel like, well, I have to have a puzzle. I got to give them something thinky to think about. And my answer to that is the dungeon should be the thinky thing to think about. Dungeons can be highly thinky, tense situations. And I usually don't feel the need to have to add more onto that. But maybe that's just kind of how I like to think and play dungeons as opposed to other folks. Elfbait says puzzles and riddles really are really counting on your player's proficiency in a real skill. Yeah, I can see that. Redcap says I often come up with a puzzle, and if they come up with something that sounds like it makes sense, that was the solution. Yep, that can work too. I do like that. It's good to make them feel smart. Absolutely. They say also, I agree. I'm not a big fan of adventures hinging on them. Yeah, I don't think you want to hinge on them. But, some people like that. You're going to get to the room, then you got to arrange all the stuff. And if you can't arrange it, then the doors don't open. And if the doors don't open, there's no way forward. And yeah, that's where I get to, like, you better make it pretty either easy and obvious, or let them force the door and then they just lose some advantage. Okay. So Ivan the Unpleasant chimes in here, quoting, OSR doesn't care about balance, and disagreeing. That's not really true. The OSR eschews artificial balance, the kind that makes sure every group of monsters the PCs encounter will be a fair and equal fight, even if it kills verisimilitude. But the logical in-world balance, scarier monsters live on deeper dungeon levels, have more treasure, is totally a thing. It's even necessary since it's part of how players are able to make rational risk-reward decisions. This is true. And Denolage acknowledges the truth of that. Michael Roundtree is here. Hey, gang. Hello, Michael Roundtree. Welcome. Thanks for coming. And I'll read the last. I guess I'll just read this one. I'll give them an upvote. Victoria Chan chimes in to say, I feel that all the JK's adventures that I own are hyper-balanced. Thracia, Dark Tower, Shattered Statue, etc. All of those are quote-unquote beatable and don't have out-of-depth monsters. I could run them for children with no changes. They do have some death traps, occasionally not very flagged that a trap is imminent, but you expect a wizard's tomb or god's coffin to have magical traps. Even the time machine used against the PCs isn't quote-unquote unfair, it just takes away some gold coins. They do, however, have ways of interacting with factions, and you can ally with one NPC against another, and the wandering monsters all have a purpose to the story and a home in the module. Personally, I've never run an obstacle that I couldn't see several solutions to, even if two of the three were fighting, fleeing, or friendship. Just my opinion. Your miles may vary. Thank you very much. And then Halfrung, responding to that, says, spoiler, the Lizard Lich King in Thracia is an out-of-depth monster for a low to mid-level dungeon. It's hidden away in a secret place, but if the PCs do discover it, you're looking at a likely TPK. Get teleport, so even running away won't save the PCs. And then Victoria Chan, responding to that, says, you have 3 artifacts by then and countless objects designed to beat evil devils and undead. Even one gem worth 50 million XP to help you level up your retainers. It's not a hard adventure. People complain because they don't follow procedure. The steel ball, just don't walk in front of it, wait in the corridor junction, and time with a calibrated candle or hourglass to see how long the circumambulation is. Played that game when I was a kid. Everyone did. It only ever killed PCs that thought they could jump off cliffs or drink fire, etc. Thank you very much for the reply. And then Halfrung says, you're thinking of something else. All right, they're just arguing a bit. And I guess I'll read Halfrung since he was active, going back and forth with Victoria Chan. Oh, let me see. The red cap says, hey, me. Hello, me. I've been thinking about character retirement and rewarding players for giving their characters a happy ever after retirement thing. Any mechanical ideas? Ooh, that's a good question. I do like the idea of retiring characters once you get, you get into that domain mode and you inherit a dukedom, or you're given a dukedom, or you steal a dukedom. And of course, at that point, you have this dukedom. Somebody needs to be the duke. And that probably means you're not going to get to adventure anymore, or you shouldn't, right? Unless you're going with sort of the William Shatner, Captain Kirk of the Duke is going out on every adventure happening. You probably don't want to do that. And then it makes sense at that point, or at some point, to establish some routine of heirs, having them either making them or, what's the other word I'm thinking? What's the word I'm thinking for? Adopting them, right? And then the also nice thing is if you're doing some sort of West Marches or old school style thing where everyone's going to have 4 PCs of different levels, then you can have your high level guy who may be doing, sort of birthright style domain management stuff. Maybe you have a mid level guy that's doing other stuff, and then you got some low level folks. As for what to do about the retirement stuff, and as Terrence chimed in, maybe some kind of legacy benefits. There's probably a lot of things to do. Let me see what Elfbait says here. In the past, I borrowed from the original AD&D Oriental Adventures concept of lineages. If you choose to make your next character descendant from the previous character, you get bonuses. Yeah, that's one way to do it. I mean, you could do something like have a DNA. Like you could get you could look at the pluses and minuses, bonuses on your older character and then apply those to the newer character. So if you had a guy with like 18 strength plus 4, then the next guy you roll up who's their heir, maybe they get a +4 to their dice, so they're tending to be strong. But then also if they had a -3 to their wisdom, that they're likely to be unwise. And then you kind of get this recurring theme. Then someone's going to go against it. Someone you might roll a 6 strength, get +3, but 9, but they're still under strong. But then you rolled an 18 in wisdom, so even with the -3, they have 15. So you can get this kind of shifting DNA. You could even do something with marriage where you roll up an NPC, give them some stats, and then literally combine the bonuses and penalties on the next person just to kind of have that so that could be a mechanical thing as far as character generation, that you have this kind of genetics that you're working with from both parent characters down to the child character. There's the not necessarily mechanical, but obviously if you've amassed a bunch of gear, then perhaps you can pass that gear off so that, you're starting off, instead of starting off with what you might normally have when you're just rolling up and you're like, oh, I've only got 40 gold pieces and that means I can only afford leather and a shield and this or that. Suddenly you've got a horse and you've got armor and you've got some kind of magic sword. Maybe you want to limit just for, or maybe you don't care since everybody might have it. If you just say, hey, I want to put a limit on how many magic items you can start the game with. Maybe you could have no more flat bonuses to stuff than your level, so that, the max a level 1 player could have was 1+1 thing. And then when they get to level 2, they can have 1+2 thing or 2+1 things or something like that. Might be an interesting deal. Or you could just say, hey, look, whatever the big guy's not using, you can grab, which might give them a heck of a lot of advantages. Your miles may vary on that sort of thing. Elfbait says they have family honors and heirlooms. Yep. And I would also add that they should have, hopefully you're to the point where you're having alliances, allegiances, and also enmity between factions, and they should also inherit those as well. So you're the son of the Duke or the grandson or whatever, and the people who love the Duke are going to tend to like you, but then the people who hate the Duke are going to hate you too. And as from the Glog yesterday, the Assassin's Guild may have been contacted and given a contract for your life, so you have that to look forward to. Hoosier Larry, hey Hoosier Larry, says character retired, skip a generation, let them inherit 1 magic item, a bonus to 1 proficiency and attribute. Yeah, that's another way to do it. Terrence says, or maybe the younger one learns a special trick the retired character learned during play, a family talent. That would be cool. Yeah, maybe you could. The family talent thing is pretty interesting. Of course, that opens up sort of a bag of how do you establish what these talents would be. And maybe you could make some mechanic whereby if a player can do things enough times that they become a talent they can call upon. And then at the end, they can hand that talent off. Redcap says, I was thinking mentor type status. They would mentor your new character. You get X% to the level of the retired character's bonus up until you surpass that level yourself. You could do that too. Certainly, if you're following in the same class footsteps as your parent, they could be a trainer for you. So one thing I like to do is I like to force players to invest time and money in training when they go to level up. They got to find somebody to train them, and then they have to get trained, and they have to pay for it. And an advantage might be if you're in a family and your father's a fighter and you are a fighter, that as long as they're alive, your father or grandfather, whoever the fighter, could train you and you'd get that for free, which might not be an insignificant savings of money. Now, I'd still say you have to take the time, but they could do that. So that's certainly a way to do it. Of course, the only thing red caps with that system is if your new character is something different, do they still get that, or is it just a level thing, or is it a class thing? And you may find that does that make sense? If I'm the fighter, do I get some percentage? Or I was my one character's a fighter, and now they're playing their grandson or their son, and the son's a magic user. Did that magic user get some bonus because of their father? Does that feel right to you? Do you want to do that, or you just want to say, I don't care, it's close enough, doesn't matter, right? It's just on the level they got to. But a lot of interesting stuff in there. Good stuff. I like that. Please send me questions that you feel like talking about, even if they're not on the topic of what we're looking at in the OSR chat, or OSR Reddit, rather. Tunkatot says, I've allowed players to begin with one magic item that they roll for. If it's a weapon or type of armor or shield, then it grows in power as they do. Yeah, I do like the growing in power magic items. I do like that concept, particularly if the characters start with some kind of magic item or a magic weapon, let's say, and it is a bit of a niche item that might not come up that much. Like, I want this glowing halberd. It's kind of nice that can grow with you instead of thinking, how often am I going to find, increasingly powerful halberds. Now, when I do magic weapons, I don't just do swords like the rules tend to do. I will do any kind of weapon, but I also just, maybe I'm mean, but I don't tailor the magic weapons to the party. So if you're all swordsmen, you might find a bunch of magical axes. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. And you can choose to take those axes and learn and use them, or you can hold out for a magic sword, which might be in the next loot pile, but it also, might not. But that's just me. The Red Cap says, it would have to be a class thing, but maybe if you retire your fighter and you start a magic user, my fighter uses your retired one as my mentor, all at the table. Yep. I mean, that's certainly a way of making a lot of relationships, right? So if player A had a fighter and they retired, I was playing a magic user, I retired my magic user, and then I want to play a fighter, I have that connection through families to the player A's fighter, and they can be my mentor. So yeah, I'd like that too. And it strengthens the bonds between players and their characters. So I dig it. Update says, my wife's character in our game is an axe fighter who grudgingly uses the magic sword she found because it's too good to pass up. Yeah. And I think that's okay. I don't know. I think in 5th edition, you see people saying like, my GM won't give me a magical. Well, I think, okay. So let me say back. It's okay to me because I'm not a huge fan of specialization. I don't mind it to a small degree, but as it stands, the way people seem to play a lot of their builds now, where they've become hyper specialized in exactly one weapon to the point where they're useless in anything else, it's a much bigger problem for them. I don't really sympathize too much, but I get it, right? But in an OSR fighter, you're good with all weapons. You're using the axe because you love to use axes, and so I do like the fact that, hey, she'll use the blade even though she doesn't like it, and she's just waiting for that next magic or a better axe to come along, which I dig it and I like it. She role plays it. The character talks about finding something better. Absolutely. And I think that's just kind of how it should be. But people get caught up in it's become a lot of, look, I don't want to say it's good or bad. It's really a style thing of what you like thing. It's almost a little bit of sort of wish fulfillment part of it. And that's not my bag. It's not my bag, man. Or that was like a horrible cross between Austin Powers and somebody living in a bad show. So I apologize for that one. All right. Leave this one behind. What else have we got here? Oh, The World of Outdoor Survival, a free mini-zine. All right, this is posted by The Wrong Room 666. They made a mini-zine for Pocket Places Jam 2021, which was cross-posted to this subreddit a month ago. I missed it, about the implied setting of original Dungeons & Dragons. The zine is mainly a synthesis of different sources about the setting, with a little conjecture of my own, particularly this section on dungeons. It also includes a hex map. All right, we can download it free. Oh, let's take a look. I will put a link to this. This is cool. I actually own Outdoor Survival. At one point, I did a hex kit map of the outdoor survival map, but I had to flip all the hexes because in hex kit at the time they didn't have where you could rotate from the. They have the pointy side up instead of the flat side of the hexes up. All right, let me also list that. So there we go. This is if you want to get a hold of the World of Outdoor Survival, it is there in the wrongroom.itch.io. Taryn says 3.5's spiked chain fighters eternally weeping because the GM doesn't put their rare niche weapon as a magic item in every treasure haul. Yeah, exactly. Tuckatod says, I like using magic items as hooks for future adventures, like a shield or a sword that has places to put stones of power. Found that very useful as a GM. That's cool. And I'm always down for things like stones of power. All right. So there's two. Oh, I don't want the screen. I want the Zine. All right. So I'm going to. Okay. I'm going to switch. Oh, it won't let me switch. Oh, no. I'm going to have to. Oh my gosh. It's upside down. Oh, no. They did it. They did it. Okay. They did one of these like cool foldy things, but I'm gonna have to stop sharing and reshare so we can see this PDF. But it's one of those things that it's when you look at it, it's I'll show you in a minute. You know these things where you fold it to take a single page and you fold it into some kind of small pamphlet, which I guess is the whole point. It's not showing it. Why? Oh, you know what? Hold on, I got to do this a different way. I think because it's using the PDF. It's all the browsers now want to be PDF readers. So instead of, you download something and you want to open it up, instead it wants to open up in the browser. But it seems like that open the screen version. Oh, there is a screen version. All right, thanks, Red Caps. All right, let me do that. Oh, you know what? I saw screen. For some reason, I read that like it's probably my idiocy. Read it like it's a GM screen. Like, oh, you're getting some kind of little screen to use and not formatted for screen. All right, yeah, that's. This is mucho betorno. Okay. Now let me share this. One thing I wish from Restream, I really love how easy it is to do these streams in my browser, but they only let me share one window at once, and I gotta close the sharing to restart the sharing. Did that not work? Why isn't this working? What am I doing wrong? Somebody help me. Sorry about that. Let me try this one last time. Otherwise, I'll just have to give up on it. Are you okay? So are you not going to let me do this now, or are you? Last chance, Restream. All right, doesn't want to let me show it. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I need to restart my browser, but I can't do that now, so I'm not gonna let it slow us down. I hope this doesn't mean I'm not going to be able to share my screen as far as my browser window again. All right, let's see. Hopefully this isn't just a critical error, because that would be a pain in the tuchus. All right. Why is... Oh my gosh. Seriously? Something's happened. Something's gone wrong. Now nothing is showing up. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to fix it. Well, this is a bummer and a third. All right, so what can I do? I don't think there's anything I can do. Oh my gosh. It's all gone bad. Can I share my screen? Will that work? Usually I share a window. All right, I'm going to try. Can I refresh? I don't want to do that. All right, I'm just going to read it since there's no point in me going back. Oh, in the meantime, Hoosier Larry says, niche magical weapons and armor. Yes, please. Casters get to customize their character without penalty by their spell selection. Share the love with the fighters. Oh, I don't have a problem with niche stuff. I think people depending on it is maybe the part that it's that dependency, right? So you have whoops, that idea of, because I have taken on this niche thing, everything in the world should support my niche choice. I think that's the part that I get a little bit irritated by, or I just don't have sympathy for. I love the fact of, I'm going to be a whip fighter. Well, then that's cool. And you should enjoy being a whip fighter, but don't expect the world now to consist of all whip magical items, or whips to be now the same as swords or as good or better because you chose to use a whip. Make your choice, live with it, enjoy it, but live with it, and know that, yeah, you're interesting as a whip fighter because you're going against the grain a little bit, because it is more niche, more unusual. And there are some things you can do with whips you can't do with swords. I would let you try to grab something at range with your whip, or try to do the kind of things that are done cinematically with whips. At the same time, someone could cut your whip in half, or or you try to grab something and they pull you instead of grabbing you, which is also something that happens cinematically all the time with whips. And there are reasons why whips just were never embraced by armies all over the world, that they were so amazing, and you're gonna have to live with that. And you should, because that's the choice you're making. But too often you see people who want the choice without the consequences of that choice. I want to be the whip fighter, but God's forbid that the world doesn't now revolve around whip fighting. Terrence says, I'm more than happy to let players to use their treasure to commission a special magic item if they're willing to pay and wait for it. Yes, though I play usually my games, magic items are not something that you can really find a lot of people to craft. But yes, right. Find somebody to make you something. And of course you can, maybe adventures and stuff that, okay, you're going to have to find some magic leather. I think whips are made of sinews or leather, right? Maybe you can find some magic leather and then find some way to take that magic leather and turn it into a whip. Something like that. I would definitely work with the players on that. But they have to make that initiative to do that. It's not just suddenly because they made a choice, the world now embraces their choice. All right, so I'm going to read here from the world of survival horror, and I apologize profusely for the fact that Restream, as I had just been talking up Restream, decides to let me down. But please use the link. I will post it up again. It's free on itch, so there's really no reason not to grab it and at least take a look at it. Then you can, virtually ball it up and throw it away into your trash bin if you don't want it. This is the world of outdoor survival. First section's called Protagonists. The known world is teeming with the ruins of those who foolishly tried to conquer it. Managed protagonists have Arthurian trappings, but are far from heroic. Failed homesteaders, vicious fugitives, and opportunistic glory hounds all. There are no jobs, inheritances, or opportunities to be had, meaning their only chance to rise above their station is by reclaiming the gold, artifacts, and secrets of their forebears. Stalwart adventurers carve niches in the wilderness that will inevitably be swallowed up. Demi-humans are native to the known world. Although the presence of men is meager, it is still a force to reckon with, forcing dwarves, elves, and halflings to either form uneasy alliances with men or wage costly wars to deter them. Demi-humans estranged from their homelands often throw their lots in with men with similar goals, though they can never reconcile their alien natures with the ways of men. Now on to dungeons. It says, dungeons are pocket dimensions of pure evil, anomalies that form at sites where unimaginable devastation and forbidden magics intersect. That, or they are layers of ruins buried. So, I gotta find, let's see. Sorry about that. I just had to figure out how these things flow together. Or they are layers of ruins buried so deep, even the laws of the universe forgot them. They are infinite, featureless, nonsensical, and actively try to kill interlopers. Their unnaturally identical walls and rooms either spawn monsters of their own accord or entrap beings from across the multiverse, damned to grope around in the void for eternity. The most vicious dungeons mutate to reflect the psychologies of intruders. Okay. So there we get a sense of what kind of world this little mini-zine is invoking, whether it's not to be really agreed or disagreed with. This is what they're going with. This is their take on sort of original D&D and the outdoor survival play area. Swig of water for the working man. They list a bibliography, which includes OD&D, the original first edition DMG, the outdoor survival board game, old school essentials, Torchbearer, and I guess there's another original D&D setting by Wayne Rossi, which may be an article, because it looks like there's a link there, so it might not be an actual book. Ovaltine Patrol says, a whip made from woven elf maid hair, stiffened in dragon's blood. Exactly. But you got to find the elf maid and somehow get her hair, and you're going to have to get some dragon's blood. And then maybe you got to get somebody alchemist to mix all that stuff together for you. But yep, I'm digging it. All right. Oh, there's some other bibliography items here. Medieval demographics in brief, and the outdoor survival hex map by James Mishler. And they also say the hex map that's included in this sign is a modification of Mr. Mishler's map. They say they include layers and made aesthetic adjustments, like making all roads a uniform color. They also list the Dying Earth as a reference in House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. And then talking about their depiction of dungeons is based on the explorations 4 and 5 of the house. I don't know what my depiction of dungeons is based on explorations 4 and 5 of the house. Not sure what that means. Old Doom Patrol says, don't get scammed by the woven troll armpit hair whip. Yes. That was, what does that remind me of? Oh, what was that? Zootopia? Where the fox tried to scam the mafia don by giving them like a skunk butt hair rug for his mother. Bad move by the fox. Don't try to scam a mafia don. Oh, you know what? I missed the introduction. The introduction says, original Dungeons & Dragons pairs its encounter tables with the board from Avalon Hill's Outdoor Survival to create an implied setting. This synthesis of reputable sources and my own conjecture gives substance to that setting. So we get some geography and demographics information. On the Outdoor Survival board, cabins are cities, lakes are castles, and deer are monster lairs. Assuming 6-mile hexes, the known world occupies 46,080 square miles, 41 times 34 hexes, which is about the size of Pennsylvania. The terrain is distributed as follows. Desert is 5%, grasslands is 47%, hills are 27%, marshland is 3%, and mountains is 18%. Taryn says, House of Leaves, that's some niche source material. I'm not familiar with it, so I'll have to check it out. Then Wordcap says, dragon blood has a unique scent. Carrying said whip brings tons of kobolds coming in search of the dragon and eventually attracts the attention of a bigger dragon. Yeah, these are all great stuff. You guys should we should write this down and create a real magic item. Absolutely. And I'm sure elf lords would probably not be happy with elf made hair being turned into some kind of weapon. And maybe like Galadriel from, the Tolkien's Legendarium, elf maids might not give out their hair willingly. So what have you done? What have you done to get these hairs? Actually, you know what? I was going to put that, but I will go back and, because all you guys can see are my lovely face. I'll put the link back up to the outdoor survival thing. Okay. Let's see. Rivers connect marshes and flow south through grasslands. Roads cut through forests, mountains, and marshland at strategic points. The few reliable passages through prohibitive terrains. Oh, they cross marshland at strategic points. Okay. The realms of men contain 24 castles and 9 cities, which are centralized in grasslands. Using old school essentials demographics, castles act as strongholds with populations of villages, and cities are walled small towns. This places higher-end population estimates at around 70,000, giving the known world a population density similar to Alaska. 1.52 people per square mile. The known world contains 18 monster layers. It's reasonable to assume all hexes have some monstrous layer. Those are either too isolated or concealed to key on the map. All right. We get a section on life in the known world. Men have attempted to tame the known world, but their territories are simply a toehold, a diminishing point of light in a vast, weird darkness. Instead of grand cosmopolitan wonders, the known world is a true frontier where civilization hangs by a thread. Men are guests here, and their days are numbered. There are a few thousand people per city, which are overcrowded and dominated by guilds and nobles. Monsters are fearsome and numerous, so travel and trade are perilous. and men huddle close to defensible fortifications where riders can summon help within an hour. Fortifications must be nigh invulnerable to withstand monstrous incursions. Mounted patrols range daily to secure domain and stables of flying mounts must be maintained to counter frequent aerial assaults. It's easy to get lost because the known world is largely unmapped. Forests are mythical and dense, swamps are treacherous and inaccessible, mountains are savage and deadly, and deserts are desolate and alien. Even the vast grasslands and wide rivers held by men see constant raids from pirates, highwaymen, giant and aggressive animals, and things from the depths. Maintained roads exist, but only where absolutely necessary and logistically viable. Despite the dire circumstances of men, the known world is a gonzo mishmash of science fiction and monster horror, with the realms of men providing an Arthurian backdrop. Knights and lords challenge others to honor duels at the drop of a hat. Reclusive wizards demand favors with magical compulsion and can level entire armies unaided. Crusading Templars demand tithes to their cause, scouring corruption and resurrecting the worthy. Terrence says, elf-made hair is a big poaching market for goblins. They sneak into the elf stronghold with sharp scissors and dreams of a better life through thieving. That or they steal combs and brushes. That might be another way, right? You go in, say, can I use your bathroom? And then you just rip any hair, any stray hairs off of any brush or comb that you can find. Maybe check the drain in the sink or the shower, see if anything's been caught there, and then, run for your life. Who's your Larry says, fantasy locks of love. What's the market rate for elf and maiden hair? What's the growth rate? Yeah, these are good. These are good questions. Important questions. Redcap says, I have an evil idea of hyping up unicorns and sending players on a quest to find one at a remote stronghold where it's kept as a pet. Huge rewards for horns, etc. Even bigger if a breeding pair. Ah, yes. I really like the idea of kind of the last unicorn, which was very cool, about how if you look at and I've only watched the movie, I don't know the book, but in the movie at the beginning, sort of a veteran hunter remarks that they could see that there's a unicorn somewhere in the woods because of how the woods were. I feel like you could really play with that, and that would certainly, you could see people who might want a unicorn to tend to their woods, and of course, that's not even including what magical powers people think their horn or whatever they can get out of it would be worth. And then, when they get there, there's a white rhino, or instead, like what Madame Fortuna did is, in fact, she had to do it with the real unicorn. Is at one point the unicorn gets captured and gets in this kind of wandering menagerie, and because people had lost faith in unicorns, they'd lost belief in it. Very few people could actually tell the difference between the unicorn and just a horse. So even though she had a real unicorn, the witch had to put a false horn on the unicorn so regular people would see it, which was kind of a funny thing. Elfbay says there's an entire industry of experts that scour the forest homes of elves looking for hair snagged on trees. Indeed. Well, I mean, it's not too much different from, Bigfoot researchers, right? Always looking around trying to pull out weird looking hairs and get them DNA tested. And who does the testing? Is there some guy with one of those monocles with 800 different lenses and some kind of weird dye that tests, elf hair and then looks at it? The elf hair will turn, a little blue or purple or red or something if when in contact with this certain dye or chemical or juice, that they can confirm that it is real elf-made hair. Terrence said the movie's pretty faithful to the unicorn story, but it leaves a lot of the cool stuff about Schmendrick out. Okay, well, I do want to read it, and I do appreciate Schmendrick. You can tell by suck on the hairs? Ew. So what is it saying? There's some flavor? Is there some flavor to elf-made hair? That's kind of gross. Kind of gross there. All right, so there's not much else to the zine. I feel like or zine, I should say. It's cool. There's not really any mechanics to it. It's just basically presenting, here's the world of outdoor survival. And then on the flip side, and I apologize for not being able to present this visually for those who are watching, since Restream decided to abandon me, or at least that aspect of Restream decided to fail me right after I talked it up as something very cool. But there's essentially as I said, a sort of stylized version of the outdoor survival map. Looks like they used Hexographer or Worldographer to make the map. But we've got basically one major river system. Some different. I'm sure if folks seen the outdoor survival map, it's kind of cool. It's definitely interesting. But we got everything listed up. We see the cities and settlements and the major layers and so on and so forth, and some roads. And notably there's no main, King's Road that runs through everything. There are sort of basically local roads. At least if I'm reading those right. And I'd have to go back. Yeah, I am reading that right. Elfbait says in AD&D you can hire 3 Kreen who think elf is a delicacy. They could taste it, I'm sure. Ooh. And then Terrence says it tastes like lilac and MSG. A lot of umami in elf-made hair. And then we don't even get into, if different properties of different elf types. If we have elf types in our game, what can you do with drow elf-made hair, or sea elf-made hair, or wood elf-made hair versus high elf-made hair, or whatever. Cool. Well, I apologize that the World of Outdoors I had to just sort of read, and you had to just visualize in your head, assuming you're not at a computer or somewhere where you could pop up that link by hand. We are at the bottom/top of the hour. Overview Patrol says you can tell by the smell of their distinctive conditioner. Perhaps. Any other any other things, either elf hair or non-elf hair related, we want to talk about, since I got a little bit of extra time, but not too much. And plus, I feel like I don't want to just, since Restream has failed me, I feel like it's a fool's errand to dip into OSR where I can't share what I'm actually looking at. So feel free to throw me anything, or anybody else in the chat. I can just read it out. I can just be a narrator of chat. Redcaps asks, have I seen the Apple TV show, Apple TV Plus show, Foundation? It's kind of based on Asimov's story. The way they show their rulers is amazing. It's something I'm totally ripping off. Yes, it's been forever since I read Foundation. I remember next to nothing of it. I have been watching this show. I have been enjoying the show. And yes, the kind of 3-headed empire thing is awesome. And yeah, I like that a lot. And I forget the main actor who plays the more mature Brother Day. I forget his name. I've always liked his work, and the other guys are good too. Though I have to say, young adult Empire, that actor, he's kind of grown on me, but I don't know. I wasn't feeling him at first. He had a kind of a weird look. But yeah, that is very cool. Terrence says, we have a really weird zine in the works here. Yeah, it sounds like something like that Melsonian Arts Council would put out, and there'd be a whole class and adventure and magic item formed around. Well, I guess we already have the magic item part. It's that weird whip around elf-made and elf-made hairs. Chip says, I fixed my broken glasses with a hot glue. Yeah, I'm just going to get a new set. These are like crappy. Like I literally were going to go out after this is over sometime this afternoon. Here's the other. Just finally broke off, and I'm literally just looking like a goof so I can get this done, and then I'm going to go and get some more, get a new pair. Lord Cap says, speaking about the Foundation, the 3 rulers, Dusk, Day, and Dawn, are all clones of each other at different ages. Yeah, it's good. And it really could think about different things. And I like the fact that they're now, the one thing with this new iteration of Brother Dawn, being that he doesn't conform exactly like the others, and what does that mean, and how are they going to handle it? Super cool stuff. I like the show quite a bit. There's so many good shows on TV, and I was talking to somebody else about Dune. I won't spoil the new Dune in here. I liked it, but I don't love it as much as people seem to love it. I enjoyed it. I think it's a very good movie. It looks amazing. It's beautiful. I wonder about some of the decisions they made, but as I have talked to people about it and just been pondering it, and I need to watch it again, it just makes me think. I wish they would have taken it and done as one of these TV shows. Like, give it a I don't even really think like a Game of Thrones style treatment. Though, I would not object to them giving it some kind of Game of Thrones 8 seasons, and we're going to get all kinds of material and get through a bunch of it. But even something like the newer Watchmen HBO series that I thought was amazing, or just something where you can get that 10, 12, 14 hours worth of time and really get into it. But what I want is not just the time part, is to really get into the story. Because something I felt about this Dune is, I don't know how it is in the books, comparing to the books pages, but when I think about the Lynch Dune and I think about the amount of time in this that they spend in this movie and where they are in relation to where, say, Lynch's Dune is, as far as the arc of the story, almost 3 hours on a third of the story. So if they were to spend equal amounts of time, you'd be looking at like 9 or 10 hours. But you don't learn that much in this third hour. Like it's closer to the books, which I get, but there's elements that they just don't get into, or they touch on super briefly. And that kind of bums me out, because I feel like they spend a lot of time on stuff that ultimately I don't care that much about. And then I kind of wish they would have been a little bit more efficient. Okay, you have 3 hours. But some of the stuff they tended to spend their time on, I'm like, I kind of wish you would have, this thing that you don't really talk about or you don't really mention. I kind of wish you would have spent some of that 3 hours on that as opposed to something else, but that's just me. But I kind of wish, man, make a TV, put it on the TV. I mean, I don't even think it's becoming I don't know if it's people just still have an issue of, I'm a film director, so I don't deign to do stuff on the small screen, but I think a lot of these properties would be better served if people just said, look, let's embrace it. And instead of looking at it thinking we're not going to get the same kind of quality as we would on the big screen or the stars, and I think that stuff's provably not true these days, let's look at it and say, we can get a lot more hours that we can really dedicate to the source material if we want to do it. If we really want to do it, if we really care about getting Dune in its entirety on the screen, you're not going to do it in a movie, probably not even in a trilogy or even a quadrilogy, whatever it is, but you can get that on TV. And I wish they would look at it more and say, let's do that. Terrence says I should just get a monocle for each eye. Yeah, I can only kind of, I can only do the kind of one side. So I don't know if I get that kind of monocle squeeze going in both eyes, but if I could figure out how to get a monocle to work, trust me, I would do it. I don't even know where can you buy monocles anymore? Redcap says it's amazing how much cheaper glasses are now than we were kids, ordering online, etc. Yeah, I need to get my eyes literally checked. These are, when I say these are dime store glasses, these are literally these kind of pharmacy glasses that, you go on the end of one aisle. There's one of those rotating displays that's got just generic glasses. I need to figure out, because I had I'm going to say the past year, 20/20 vision, so I never had to worry about it. Suddenly I realized my eyes were going to the point where I needed some help. So I just went and grabbed a pair. So I actually need to go to somewhere and get my eyes checked. In the meantime, I've just been doing this. So I will get another pair of these, which are super cheap and kind of disposable. These hung around for quite a while. I was actually afraid that I would lose them before I got around to getting more glasses, more than I thought I would break them. But yeah, I need to go to a proper eye place. I was going to say, I forget the name of it now, eye place, and get proper glasses and do that whole spiel. Chip says they watched The Magnificent Seven yesterday, the old one, looking for other old Westerns to watch. Any ideas? I'm kind of a fan of Rio Bravo. It's a John Wayne, Dean Martin, and who's the kid who was the singing sensation at the time? But I really like Rio Bravo. I like that one a lot. If you want to watch one that's newer but has that old school Western feel to it, Silverado is a big favorite of mine. It doesn't get a lot of love. It was really overshadowed by Unforgiven. It's not trying to do the things that Unforgiven is doing, but it's a really great modern Western and kind of a classic vibe to it. So I would definitely look up Rio Bravo. I mean, there's there's the classic John Wayne things like, I'm skipping on, I forget the names, but a lot of those kind of classic movies. And just a shout out for it's not a Western, but I love The Quiet Man, where his character goes back, he's a boxer, goes back to Ireland. Just a great John Ford, I think it's John Ford non-Western with John Wayne. But yeah, check out Rio Bravo. Um, check out Silverado. I also like the Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. It kind of has a nice kind of twist kind of thing going on. I like Westworld if you want sort of a sci-fi-ish kind of Western thing. Terrence says they cut a lot of side character development out in this new one in favor of Vistas. Yes, and that's where I think ultimately I agree, Terrence, and I think that the Vistas aren't really as memorable as those characters would have been if they had kept them. So I kind of wish that they had figured out a way to get your Vistas in, or maybe cut out some of the action sequences. I think I'm at the point where now everything's been done to such a degree and special effects are so good that you're not going to wow me just with having an action sequence. And there's at least one action sequence in there that they could have cut down a lot. It's just not that memorable. It's not going to ooh, and it didn't ooh and wow me when I watched it the first time. It's not going to do it if I watch it a fifth or sixth time. Whereas I think if they would use that to go in and flesh out some of those other things instead for a couple minutes, that would have been ultimately a better use of the time, though not as, sexy, I guess. The Red Caps responding to Chip says, not an old Western and does have some visually disturbing stuff. I highly recommend Bone Tomahawk. Oh yeah, Bone Tomahawk if you want to get into kind of genre, a little bit of sort of genre bending stuff is great. Tombstone. I mean, Tombstone is not old, but classic as well. Terrence, I hope they finally get that Dark Tower show off the ground. Yeah, that movie was pretty bad. I read the first Dark Tower book ages ago. I love Idris Elba, but I could not get through that Dark Tower movie. So hopefully if they do have a show, it does good. Oh, Terrence brings up True Grit and The Searcher. Yep, and there's also The Shootist. You get kind of True Grit and The Shootist are definitely kind of old. John Wayne, which is kind of cool because he doesn't shy away from the fact that he's sort of old, and that really plays into things, which is good. I had something else I was going to bring up, and now I've forgotten. High Noon is good. It's a classic. I think is also good. And once you go down that rabbit hole, there's bunches and bunches. Ovaltine Patrol says they may as well make a streaming series since they're already undercutting their box office with near concurrent releases of blockbusters on streaming. I think the problem is, or maybe not the problem, but I think the thing with the streaming is, and I don't know if this is something they openly acknowledge or it's just whatever, is the stuff's getting leaked online. And Dune was leaked online. I mean, I didn't pursue it or look for it, but I saw the reports that had been linked online a week before they were going to put it out for streaming anyway. But it seems like if things are going to leak and there's so many sources to download stuff and you can't catch it all, the way to get people to not do that or even not be tempted by it is to make it available to stream if that's what you're going to do sooner rather than later. And then really try to hook people in with giving people an experience that is movie theater worthy to get them into the theaters. At this point, for a lot of movies, I just don't mind waiting. I mean, the waits, I'm a child of the 70s and 80s, and movies took forever to come out. I mean, once you had home video, once home video was even a thing, it was, you either were waiting forever for it just to show up in some brutalized form on some kind of TV channel, or you had to wait a long time for it to come out on video. And that's not even kind of factoring the fact is then you could only rent it because they had that rental pricing where you would, I want to buy Aliens on VHS. Yeah, sure. It's $80 because they had this whole deal where they wanted to encourage you to go to places like Blockbuster and rent it, right? So even factoring, you had to wait forever. Now I think that even without this, we're going to release it streaming at the same time. Movies, I feel like they're on streaming quick. I mean, so fast that unless I really want to go see it or I really want to go to the theater, because it's like I love the theater, I can wait. And I don't mind. I don't even really mind about the spoiling part. I can either avoid spoilers or usually I don't care. If I'm going to enjoy the movie, I'm going to enjoy it whether I know what's going to happen or not, because basically most movies are pretty predictable when you really think about it. They're not really fooling. You're not really getting fooled too many times with movies. So it's really got to be just, I want to go see it. Ovaltine Patrol says, Silverado's fun. Oh, yeah. Then he also mentioned the Wild Bunch. Yeah, definitely the Wild Bunch. And also, not maybe a pseudo-Western, Western-ish, but that other Peck and Paw classic, Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. Also an excellent film. But yeah, I like the Wild Bunch a lot. A lot. Also, clearly The Mandalorian. Yep, Mandalorian. Also a classic Western, or at least trying to pull those classic Western threads. Tonka Todd's list of outstanding Westerns. Silverado, the original True Grit, Rio Lobo, Two Mules for Sister Sarah, Pale Rider. Oh yeah, I didn't even get into the spaghetti westerns. I like the classic Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns. I also like My Name Is Nobody with Henry Fonda and that Italian actor whose name I can't ever remember, as kind of a comedy western that plays upon stuff like Once Upon a Time in the West. So I give marks for that. Two Mules for Sister Sarah is good too. I agree. Terrence says I'm actually named after the lead actor in the Trinity films. Oh, cool. Oh yeah. Ah ha ha. Excellent. Oh, Hell on Wheels. I didn't watch that when that was on. Maybe I should have. That was on like TBS or TNT for a while. Something might check out. Should be on there. So, High Plains Drifter, also a good one. 310 to Yuma. Yeah, both the original. And I liked the Christian Bale. Who else was in that? Christian Bale and someone else was in the remake. Terrence Hill. Yep, there he is. That's right. I should have seen your message before I opened my mouth. Yeah, Terrence Hill. What is his actual Italian name? I remember seeing it somewhere, but he was in a bunch of those. But yeah, My Name Is Nobody. I don't know, always crack me up. And also, if you like My Name Is Nobody, there's their take on sort of a superhero cop buddy feature with him and Ernest Borgnine as what's it called? Super Cop? Very weird, kind of offbeat, funny. It's got very similar comedic stuff to My Name Is Nobody, but then he's a cop instead of and he's clearly has superpowers. But I think he loses the powers when he sees the color red or something else from that. And of course, that plays into a number of gags. Oh yeah, and then Redcaps brings in Russell Crowe. Absolutely. All right, folks. Well, now I do have to jump. Thanks for hanging out and being with me even through the failure of Restream. See, next time Restream, I'm just not going to mention anything. Because I don't mention anything, then you don't break. I crow about to praise you, and all I do is I get grief for it. Before you head out, on your way out to the doors, pick up your trash, throw it in the receptacles, recycle, and leave a thumbs up if you can, if you want, if you thought this was fun, and you found yourself in here and you're not subscribed, then go ahead and subscribe. Otherwise, everybody have a great weekend if you are watching and listening to this now or on another Friday. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, night, whenever you are watching or listening to this. Game on. Be nice, everybody, and I'll talk to you later.